Vasudevendra Yogendram Dattva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. So we spoke about the direct meaning and the implied meaning. If we look at the direct meaning of the word you, then that meaning will be the same question as if I ask you, you are, and then I walk away. And then you got 100 notions imputed onto this you. I am this, I am that. So that you cannot be referring to Ishvara. However, if I say also, what is the implied meaning when we say the word you, then it is the content which makes up the whole universe. And similarly, if you ask what is the direct meaning of that or Ishvara, then at the same time, Ishvara, right, means all laws and orders, the total intelligence, which connects causes and effects, which facilitates relationships between today, between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, that has been doing this for eons, which will continue to do this long after we are gone. And it is from which everything comes from, which is sustaining your mind, this mind, everyone's mind, which is sustaining all of the laws and seasons and creating these relationships between causes and effects and allowing all forms to work within a certain given order in a perfect harmony as is intended and has been doing so since time immemorial. This intelligence is so vast, we cannot fathom it. Always maintains a certain order of ethics, which the person can, of course, violate through their free will. But it is that order which has gotten you to this point right now, where you're appreciating of having gotten this far. And so this order cannot be possibly equated to you because, the individual is little bit of knowledge, little bit of power, and this order is vast, it's infinite. Therefore, we have to use an equation. And the equation is, for example, you say 3 plus 1 equals 6 minus 2. So look at this. 3 is different from 6, plus is different from minus, 1 is different from 2. The whole thing is different. But if you resolve 3 plus 1, you get 4. And if you resolve 6 minus 2, you also get 4. So in that way, we have to apply the implied meaning of Tattvamasi. So on the left side, we have you. We're not talking about you, the small being. We're talking about you, the content from which everything comes. And on the right side, we're not equating you, the small being, to the whole ocean. You cannot compare the small wave to the whole ocean. It's crazy. So on the right side, also the intended or the implied meaning of Ishvara is consciousness. Therefore, they both enjoy one and the same reality. As we said, this consciousness enjoys the power to manifest the universe, which is called Maya Upadhi. And when it does manifest the universe, it manifests all laws and orders, and it manifests all beings. And one of them right now is you and I talking to each other, listening and appreciating this Maya Upadhi, how real it makes all things. Look at this. You're breathing, crossing your arms, listening, kneeling down, sitting, and it's all so real when you breathe the air. And if you touch two surfaces, there's a certain friction or there's a certain point of contact, and it seems very real. It's amazingly real how Maya makes it. And yet the whole thing is just a projection without any real essence whatsoever. Because if you look into anything in this universe, take anything, take this cup, and you say it's real. But then if I look in this cup, I actually can't really find ceramic. It's made of molecules. But if I look into the molecules, I can't even find the molecules. I can only find atoms. And if I look into the atoms, I can't really find atoms. I find the proton, electron, and neutron. So you keep on going like this, and you actually cannot find the final building block. But what can you find at every level? Intelligence holding every mithya together, making it what it is. Holding the ceramic, holding the molecules, holding the atoms, holding the quarks in an intelligent way, for eons. So the only thing, if you look through analysis, that you can really find is not a final building block. You can only find intelligence at every level. And therefore, the whole thing, right now, your sofa you're sitting on, your mind, your clothes, there's no such thing as flesh, as clothes and sofa and, and this screen you're looking at. The whole thing is just intelligence manifesting and giving you this impression that there's actually something here right now. And you cannot think of intelligence unless it exists, therefore it enjoys sat, and you cannot think of intelligence unless it is in the presence of consciousness, because intelligence cannot do anything unless it is enjoying consciousness. Therefore, even intelligence has a dependent reality on sat and chit. And therefore, the final reality on the left side for the jiva is sat and chit, and on the right side is also sat and chit. Then it says in the next verse, it now asks the question, who's this man or woman who's ascertained this knowledge? Who is a man or woman of realization? And it starts with Evamcha Vedanta Vakyaihi. It asks the question, does truth dawn upon you just one fine day? You're just driving a car or sitting down on a chair, and out of nowhere, the whole thing just dawns upon you, and you have recognized all that is to recognize, and you now know all of the secrets of the universe magically. And someone who knows you comes up to you and they say like, wow, you just an hour ago, you didn't know anything, and now I'm talking to you and you're a totally different person. Where is all this coming from? And the answer is very much no, because anywhere that you observe, to learn any topic like physics, you need to go to school for a time to learn the fundamentals. And when you capture those fundamentals, things may still not make sense, but you're familiarizing yourself with the topic. So in that same manner, just like I cannot learn anything deeply unless I spend time in that long enough to not only familiarize yourself with it, but also to gain some perspective and relevancy. How is this relevant to my experience of going shopping, right? How is it relevant having a shower? How is it relevant going to a park? So you not only have to learn the fundamentals, but you need to bring it down to earth into an ordinary driving, shopping experience. Until then, it's just not going to quite click. It's going to be sort of this knowledge is over there, and me, the person who's practical, who's useful in this world, is different, but the knowledge is over there. So you have to find that connector and make it very relevant to your breathing, to your speaking, to the way that you see, to the way that you hear, to your common down-to-earth everyday experience. So the verse wants to bring out that the one who doesn't know this reality will never know this reality magically, because the person who's asking what is the nature of this I doesn't know the answer to the I. It's like asking, what is the nature of the sun? What's the nature of the sun? What's the nature? Why ask if you can just look it up? Why ask if you can just hear it from a teacher? And the second answer is why this knowledge is not going to dawn one fine day is because the reality, take anything like a car. For the most practical reasons, what do we do with a car? You get into a car, you get from place A to B. So look at this. You're using a thing for your own practical use, but do you even know what a car is made of? Do you even know how a car works? ECU, electronic control unit. No, who knows how to program that? Optimize the gear to torque ratio. So do we actually know how a car works? Most of us don't. So a car is a thing. So this means to get to know a thing, besides just using it, I need to spend time in it long enough until I have a different relationship to a thing. So just like that, reality, as though a thing, I can use reality for practical reasons. But do I actually understand what is this reality that I'm using for practical reasons? Now, for most of us, the answer is no. So this means just like a car, a thing, reality, as though a thing, I have to get to know it. To know something, it means you have to study it. You have to learn about it. There's no point experiencing it, because to experiencing it, it's like experiencing a car. Do you know the car? Just because you're experiencing a car? No. You may have an experience of driving a car, but it doesn't mean you know the car. You may experience reality, but it doesn't mean you understand reality. Therefore, the natural solution is I have to remove my lack of knowledge pertaining to this reality, which I am not apart from. Therefore, the topic matter becomes gaining knowledge about this very environment that I'm participating in and that I'm a participant of. Therefore, we need to gain this knowledge. Now, what the verse says is, to gain this knowledge, you need a means of knowledge. You don't just hear it from a physics teacher. You need a particular teacher that focuses on the reality of the whole reality, not a part of reality, but the whole reality. And this one is called in the verse Sadguru Upadeshena. So Sadguru means, Sat means truth, and Guru means the expounder, or the one that brings clarity to the point where truth becomes obvious to you. Therefore, they are called Satguru. So who is this teacher that shows you the big picture? They're the ones that bring potency to the teaching. Because if you just look at the verse, it's words. But how do I bring, you need to bring enthusiasm to the words. You need to bring some emotional value to the words so that we can connect and we can be a little bit enthusiastic about it. So until then, it is more or less just words. And it's okay for most of us. But if you really want to know the whole thing, you specifically need Satguru, the one who brings potency to the teaching, the one who makes the teachings alive, the one who flowers the teachings, the one who brings special holy water and puts it onto the book. And out of the book, this knowledge grows these teachings, and it smells nice. Now it's all lovely. I want to eat it before, oh, it's just sort of away from me. So you need to bring it closer. And a Sadguru is also one who brings out the lakshyartha of any statement. This means you need to bring out the implied meaning of Tattvamasi. Until then, if a reader looks at Tattvamasi, what is the natural assumption for most? It's going to be Vachyartha. It's going to be direct. I am Ishvara, and therefore we start this whole thing of I am God. And who is this I? The body-mind. And so the person walks with this notion, which is very damaging. And so the teacher removes this error that can be detrimental. And then Brahma Buddhihi Utpana. So what happens having gone to the teacher who has added potency to the words and brought out the implied meaning of the words? What happens then for you, the listener? Brahma Buddhihi Utpana, the truth, Utpana means to be born. In the Buddhi, what is born in the Buddhi? Brahman. That means the truth is born in the Buddhi. Therefore, just as the book intends to communicate the reality, exactly like that, your Buddhi captures the reality. There's no discrepancy between the intended message and what your Buddhi has actually constructed, what it's ascertained, what it's looked at. There's no difference between the two. So this person whose Buddhi has exactly captured as intended by the teaching and portrayed by the Sadguru, they're called Jivanmukta. They understand that I am never born. Yeah, sure, my body's born, your body's born, everyone's body is born, but the whole reality is never born. If reality is born, then what was before reality? Out of what did reality come from if it was born? A second reality? Okay, right? There's one reality appearing as different things. We understand this through Maya Upadhi, but reality itself, from which all things come and from which all things are made of, including you, the listener, and me, the speaker, right now, from which they are made, that reality is never born. And since everything is that reality, then I
have to be that reality. You have to be that reality too. And that reality is never born. Therefore, there's no question of that reality ever dying. The upadi may die. In fact, your upadi will die. My upadi will die also. No doubt. We can acknowledge that and appreciate that and thank God it will die, because who wants to have their upadi forever? Who wants to have their limited upadi forever? Huh? Yeah. So, this is also part of the process, that this is a setup of Ishvara. This is how the design is. The upadi lasts, it goes through old age, it goes through disease, it goes through decay, and then, the upadi dies to give chance for other upadis to live. And therefore, they also need to find the Sadguru. So, now, how does knowledge take place? When we are born, we come with hundreds of notions of what this I is. In fact, not only do we come, but also we are inculcated with additional notions from your parents, from your society, from your culture, from other people that you've heard. And so this I now has tons of notions. In order to bring this notion into a more realistic standpoint, you have to be ready. Otherwise, you're going to be holding on to your notions because they're so precious. It's like a deck of cards, that you've taken 5 years or 10 years to build. And you know that one gust of wind is going to blow them all away, isn't it? So you say, no, stay away. Stay away from my deck of cards. Stay away from my model of the world, which I have carefully constructed. So this means we need a certain readiness, a certain vulnerability to open ourselves up for the teaching to take place. And so this vulnerability is what an adhikari is. We started out the verses saying that adhikari has certain readiness. They have dispassion. What is dispassion? Dispassion means a thing can give me some happiness, but no matter what happiness it gives me, it doesn't really last too long. And secondly, the real source of happiness is myself alone. And thirdly, my desires are constantly changing. So in 1 year from now, that very thing that I worked for so hard, it's not going to be so valuable in 1 year from now. So the person uses their discriminative inquiry to understand things can bring me a little bit of usefulness, a little bit of joy, but not whereby it is the ultimate savior, because all things will come to their expiration date. All things have an expiration date. So we had qualities like faith. That means having that conviction to stay long enough onto anything to get to know it very well. And qualities that we have spoken of, like discriminative inquiry, being a thinker, got to ask questions, inquire into reality. These are all qualities of readiness. Okay. So this is an adhikari. So this means the one who's ready has to have a little bit of leeway to let go of small things. Because if I cannot let go of small things, how are you going to let go of bigger things? And what's the biggest things to be let go of? This most precious instrument, which we've been holding on to for so long. I am these thoughts. I am this life. I am this body. I am these accomplishments. I am this status. Therefore, we start small and we start giving away. This is why donations or charity in the tradition has a big place. It's not for the other person. It's actually for you, because to release, to be able to give away means you're able to start small, and that smallness can grow, and then smallness can come into something much bigger, and you're able to release the very thing that you've been holding on to for so long. And so it's a process. Now, this process, as we engage through this giving and releasing and ascertaining the knowledge and listening to the Sadguru and inquiring into these statements, slowly, your model of the world gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more accurate in the light of the scriptures. Initially, it starts off very rough. So as we listen more and more and more, it polishes itself. and it starts to take the exact format of what the scriptures are portraying. Eventually, as you go through this growing clarity, you come to the final piece of the puzzle where instantly, at once, it all makes sense. It's like you discover the pen is on your ear, and from then on, there's no more confusion. It just instantly, you recognize that, I have connected with what I am. I have understood I am awareness. I understand that is the final reality. It is very clear what awareness is. My buddhi has no problem understanding this awareness, this consciousness that is always present, invariable presence, in whose presence all of these changes come and go. It is very clear to me, and there's no doubt. It's so simple. It's so down to earth. It's so ordinary. Understanding this, we call this thought called akhanda akara vritti. Akhanda means without division. So this is as I explained last week, a special kind of thought which no other thought enjoys the same nature. To give you an example, kind of similar, is when you're in the daylight to a certain spot, there's no enough light, and there is a kind of a belt, right? Someone just dropped their belt, and it's a brown belt, and it's got those cobra leather skin on it. And there's no enough light to kind of make out clearly what it is. And so you look at that and you have a genuine fear. You scream and you scare other people. In fact, you disturb the entire world because of your false perception of what that is. So for you in that moment, your reality of it, that belt being the snake, is absolutely true. There's no doubt about it. You will even go and hire a psychologist and pay them $10,000 to help you cure a phobia of your perception, which in reality is just your personal perception. Now, when the fella tells you, hey, come closer, let's just shine some light, let's reveal it, let's bring it, let's give it more knowledge than you have currently received. And how do you give it more knowledge? You have to shine it light. And so you come and you say, it's not what I thought it is, and therefore it goes. So that snake doesn't leave anything underneath in its place. It completely vanishes. Okay? So akhanda akara, so what happens? Underneath the snake, what happens is revealed that which always is, the substratum without which the snake cannot exist. So that's called akhanda akara vritti. Now, the problem with this example is, even after the snake goes, which was an image in your mind, what's still left? Well, the belt. Therefore, now the belt is in your mind. You see? So this is why akhanda akara vritti cannot be compared to anything, because this thought doesn't leave an image of consciousness in your mind. A belt is an image, a belt or a snake is an image. Akhanda akara simply removes the ignorance. What kind of ignorance? That I am something that is to be experienced, that I am something that is to be known as an object, that I am something that is to be seen, that I am something that is to be heard. All of these notions are false. They're all attributing upadhi onto consciousness, attributing experience onto consciousness, attributing attributes onto consciousness, attributing 1,000 subtle epiphanies, sublime experiences onto consciousness. So they're all with form. They're all form. Akhanda akara vritti is without form whatsoever. Therefore, how normally knowledge takes place is when you see something like a cup. As I said, the sun bounces the light into your retina. The retina takes that into the brain. The brain converts that into electrical impulses, and an image in your mind takes place. That image, this cup, is not inside your physical brain, is it? But it is inside your brain, isn't it? How? Because the thought has taken place, and that thought now in your brain that you're seeing is called vritti vyapti. Vritti means thought, and vyapti means result. So what has resulted by your eyes being exposed to this? A thought that represents this object. Now look at this. If you look at this object, are you seeing the whole of it? Good, someone's shaking head. No. Why not? Because from your standpoint, you're only seeing that much. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. So look at this. In order to get the full scope of this knowledge, of this cup, what do you have to do? You have to slowly look at it. One more day attend, one more day listen, one more day listen, one more day listen, one more day listen, get full 360-degree, and every time what happens? More ignorance of this object gets removed. And this removal is called palavyapti. So as you spend time, what's the pala, what's the reward, what's the consequence? Removal of ignorance happens more and more and more. Knowledge is exactly like this. When we hear Vedanta for the first time, we're only seeing one perspective. So therefore, we come back to hear another perspective, another perspective, another perspective. Eventually, what happens when you see it all, or when you've seen enough, the whole thing takes place at once. That's called Akhanda Akara Vritti. The only difference is with Akhanda Akara Vritti, again, consciousness is not a thought that you have. It's huge, like imagining huge awareness that is just boundless. It's not like that. It is recognizing that consciousness is never covered because it's evident to everyone. Nobody needs to tell you that you are. Therefore, you don't need, look at this. Suppose in yoga, we say you cannot apply a limited action to remove a limitless, to gain a limitless result. Did you hear this before? You cannot apply a limited meditation of 5 minutes or a nirvikalpa samadhi of 5 hours to gain or to discover that which is limitless. You heard this? For example, if you work for 1 hour at your work, you're only going to get 1 hour worth of wage. If you work 2 hours, you're going to get 2 hours worth of wage. If I spend 5 hours discovering who I am through an action, what will I get? I will get 5 hours worth of experience. Now, someone's going to come and throw an objection, and they're going to convert that into Vedanta. They say, well, how can a limited thought, Akhanda Akara Vritti, it's all limited, how can that give you access to the limitless reality? Do you hear the objection? Because Akhanda Akara Vritti is a thought which takes place, which we call moksha. It takes place and you understand your nature permanently. But Akhanda Akara Vritti is, it's a thought, and every thought is limited. How can a limited thought gain access or give access to that which is limitless without boundaries? Think about this. The answer is, firstly, who you are is not completely covered. If I, for example, tell you the word in Latin for a girl is puella, puella. Now, suppose I stop halfway and I say pue, pue. Do you still know the full word for a girl in Latin? And I just say pue? No, I have to go puella. So I have to give you the full thought that extends from the range, from the beginning of that which you're ignorant of, all the way to the end. Only then you have total removal of ignorance. You understand? So if I say, hey, the word for girl in Latin is puella. But suppose I say the word for girl in Latin is pu. Do you know the full word for girl? And I just say pu? No. What about pue? How about now? What about puella? What about puella? Now, so this means when it comes to those things which you have no knowledge of, the thought has to be the same range as the ignorance. But when it comes to awareness, that is not true, because you already have knowledge of who you are. Everyone knows I am. It's evident. Therefore, you don't need a limitless thought to give access to that which is limitless. At the same time, you also point out those limiting factors, such as the body and the mind. I don't need the body to know that I am. I don't need to calculate that I'm like 1 + 1. I'm breathing. Yep, I can work things out. Therefore, I am. You don't need to think that you are. Whether you think that you are or you don't think that you are, you still know that you are. And the second reason why you don't need a limitless thought to uncover that which is limitless is because awareness underneath every thought is always the same. So look at this. Suppose we have a canvas with a color yellow underneath, okay? The whole thing is just yellow, and I cover that canvas. Now, suppose I open up a dot, a little dot worth of, unblock a little dot worth of cover. What's going to be underneath? Yellow. And suppose I open this much worth of cover. What's going to be underneath? Yellow. In other words, it's always going to be one and the same reality. Therefore, you don't need a limitless thought to uncover a limitless reality, because the limitless reality is always the same. It's always going to be conscious. That because of which every thought is conscious. Every thought is made to be revealed. Okay? So the question now comes is, who is this person who is completely free? Okay, now we're on to Nanu, objection. Jivanmukta kaha. Who is a Jivanmukta? Or a Jnani? Jnanini is woman, Jnani is man. It doesn't really matter. It's wisdom either way. We say Jnani usually. Okay, so, this is where most of the confusion comes in this pursuit of liberation. And normally, how does one look for an enlightened person? Usually in common ways. How does one look for an enlightened person? Does someone want to share?
Physical appearance.
Okay, good. What else?
They're the same in all circumstances. They don't get excited. They're
Can't.
You can't. Yeah, that's the best answer. Mostly, body, that's maybe very, very beginner, but more than that, it is actually psychology. So most will look for a wise person in their behavior, in their compassion, how kind they are, what kind of word selections do they use, are they intelligent, do they carry themselves intelligently, how knowledgeable they are in the scriptures, can they connect the dots, right? All of these things is how we look at for a wise person. This is fair, but the news is none of these at all say anything about a wise person, because you can have a very compassionate person who doesn't know the nature of I. You can have a very giving person who doesn't know the nature of I. The only way that's fail-safe that you can ever tell who is wise is, as Lorena says, you can't. But if there were to be a way, the only way is if one's understanding of reality is keeping with the reality that is wise. If reality is one way and I understand reality the other way, can that be wisdom? No. If reality is like this, and where is reality told? In the scriptures. And my understanding of reality is like that, and there's no correlation, can that be called wise? Not at all. That can be called relatively wise. You can be wise in your business, in many things, but regarding the whole truth, not at all. Therefore, an unwise person will never be able to tell who is a wise person, because an unwise person is starting out with a premise that reality is like this. Whereas a wise person understands through their hard work, through Sadguru, through Vedanta, through Tattvamasi, through implied meaning, they understand reality to be like this. And the unwise person will never understand the wise person's point of view, because it takes time. Like with anything, like with physics, like with mathematics, you need to spend time to see the intricacies, the depth of what is being spoken. And it's very common to hear, no, they're not pure. They don't have a pure mind, therefore they're not liberated. It's very common to hear this. It has nothing to do with the person's purity or not. In fact, when it comes to purity, look at this. How does a person in this journey start? Adhikari. By the time you're an adhikari, you have already taken care of your physiology, of your psychology. You're already addressing dharma. You're already living a clean life. You are already a decent person, relatively decent. So it's not that enlightenment makes you compassionate and kind. It is all the things that you've done before that makes you compassionate and kind. Therefore, an adhikari, by their participation and their humility to understand and to live a clean life, that is what that simply carries over to the wise person. But in no way do those qualities say whether one is wise or not. The only thing that says whether one is wise or not is my understanding of what is going on right now, not tomorrow or yesterday, right now. Is my understanding right now keeping with what is right now? There's a direct match between the two. Therefore, it wants to now continue and says, what is this reality for a common man? And wants to contrast what's the reality for a common man and what's the reality for a Jivanmukta. So for a common man who is yet to come to this, okay, they're going through a journey, see for them what kind of notions are deeply entrenched. Well, it says, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a Brahmana. A Brahmana means an educated person, like a smart person, an accountant, a researcher, a teacher. I'm a Kshatriya. I am small. I am Ishvara is big and I am small. All of this is deeply entrenched. It is considered the truth with capital letters, the truth. It's so normal that when someone says to them, you and Ishvara enjoy the same reality, it is so hard to receive this. You can't handle it. You just can't handle it. You just go like, whoa, right? You throw something out to cancel out this statement. You just can't handle it, because the understanding that I am small and I am different from you and God is big and he's the governor and I have to comply to the rules, and all of these notions, they're so entrenched that you can't get across to this person. It's too much. Now, just like it's so deeply entrenched for a common man, in that same way, for a Jivanmukta, what do they say? Not that they say it, but what do they understand in the background all the time? I am not a Brahmana. I am not a Swami. I'm not a teacher. I'm not this person. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not these afflictions. I'm not this life. I'm not this disease. I'm not this, this concern. I'm none of this. This is all an incidental upadhi of Maya, which has been going on for eons. None of this I am. It is here. I respect that. It has to live out a few more years. I respect that, and I will definitely take care of it. But none of this is me. I am asanga. In other words, I am in and through all things, just as H2O is through and through both the ocean and every wave. I am in and through all things at the same time. I am free of the whole thing. So this means you don't have to let go or detach from things or live a certain life of cleanliness and all of this. This is all fine and it's necessary and it's normal. You don't even speak about it, because to be an adhikari implies you've already found the value in living a relatively clean life. So we don't even need to address this by now. Therefore, one doesn't need to give up things, give up relationships and give up their work and give up money and give up success. All of these things play a life that makes you relatively, as a person, happy. So you can see how it brings things down to earth. One doesn't need to get away from things, leave their family and go to the mountains and go to India, go to some special place. None of this touches me. It's all forms, permutations and combinations of 5 elements, just doing their thing and have been doing it for time immemorial. Leave it alone. Look at this. 5 cells come together and they produce happiness. Suppose simplicity. I know it's more complicated than that. You got, chemicals and so on. 5 cells come together and they produce a feeling of happiness. If you look into every one of those cells, into each one of them, can you find intrinsic happiness in one of those cells? But when the 5 come together, what happens? Happiness comes. So you can't find happiness in the individual cell. Then can you find happiness at the molecule level that makes up that cell? If you cannot find happiness, nor the cell at the molecule, can you find it at the atom? If you can't find the molecule, nor happiness, nor the cell at the atom, can you find it in those components that make up the atom, like the atomic nuclei? So if neither of them have happiness, then what is to say about consciousness? That which makes up, and is even subtler, makes up the whole thing. If even the atom doesn't have happiness, what to say of consciousness having an attribute of happiness? If even fear doesn't inhere in the molecule, then what to say of fear inhering in consciousness? But when you create forms together, you put them together, they magically create happiness and fear and all of these forms that you have to give a name to. Even mithya doesn't have attributes of its own. What to say of consciousness, satyam? Okay, therefore, I am asanga through and through everything at the same time, free of happiness, free of anger, free of my punya papam, free of all of the good things you've done, free of all of the vices you've done, free of the whole thing. I am prakasha rupa. Prakasha rupa, I am like light. So in other words, in the presence of light, what happens? Everything is revealed. Just like the light in the example in the room. You turn on the light, the whole thing gets revealed. So this means consciousness is like light that reveals your thoughts, reveals my thoughts, reveals a criminal's thoughts, reveals a saint's thoughts. In fact, there's no such thing as a saint or a criminal. What do you mean by criminal? What specifically now do we mean when we say criminal? What's so criminal about burning down a shop? Does a whole person now become a criminal? No. So in other words, we have to get more specific. Their behavior may be inappropriate, but when we generalize like this and we say saint or criminal, it's a little bit, we need to look at that. What do we mean when we say that? So I am sarvantaryami. Sarvantaryami means I am the same consciousness that abides in all of the minds, because sarva means in all. That means it inheres in all minds. Now look at this. Same consciousness that abides in all minds. So the question is what? How do you show that consciousness is one and the same in all minds, right? What happens? How do you prove that your consciousness in your mind is exactly the same consciousness in my mind? Because if all things are nothing but expressions of consciousness, of one consciousness, then I need to now prove, how do I know that I'm enjoying the very same consciousness that Krishna is enjoying, that Rama is enjoying, that an avatara is enjoying, that God is enjoying? How do I prove that? I asked this question last week, if you remember. Yes, Lena.
Because it's no guna, it has no qualities, has no attributes. So therefore, it's the same for everyone, for everything.
I'll expand onto that. I'll bring some, like a look at this. Suppose you say your consciousness is smart, okay, because you're attributing mind to consciousness. This is common. Mind equals consciousness, consciousness equals mind. So suppose your mind is smart, therefore you have smart consciousness, right? If you had smart consciousness, could you identify that which opposes smartness? Like dull person? No, because you'll be perceiving the whole thing through the eyes of smartness. It would be overriding every other contradictory attribute to smartness. I'll give you an example. Suppose you're shining white light onto RGB. What's going to happen? You're going to specifically see RGB. But what happens if you're shining a red light at RGB? Could you then distinctly identify RGB? No, because red plus green equals whatever. Red plus blue equals some different color. So only in the presence of an attributeless light can you identify distinctly what each color is. In that same manner, only in the presence of an attributeless consciousness can you distinctly identify happiness is happiness. Right now, I am happy. Right now, I am confused. Do you ever go like this? You know, I'm so happy that I'm sad. You know, right now I'm so sad, but I'm also happy at the same time. Do you ever go like this? Hey, go to a psychologist and say, hey, psychologist, you know, I've been so exhilarated these days that, but you know, I'm on the verge of, I'm on the verge of collapse, but I'm so exhilarated about the whole thing. And the psychologist is like, what are you talking about? You know, you either are happy or you're peaceful or you're sad. What are you? Or I'm everything at once. Consciousness is that which identifies everything distinctly. This is why you have no problem identifying I'm happy, full stop. You don't go, I'm happy. Am I really happy? Or am I sad, right? You say, I'm sad, fair and square. So this means that which is free of attributes always reveals precisely every other attribute as it is. Because your sight doesn't have color, because of that, you can see color. If your sight had blue, you could not see anything but blue. It will be interfering with everything else. In that same way, if consciousness had an attribute like smartness or blueness, it would be constantly perceived and it would be constantly interfering with your entire experience. Everything would be blue. Everyone would be considered smart. Even someone that's putting worms inside their nose is considered very smart. Everything would be smart. But you don't do that. Your experience is very clear what things are. The other way to say is, if your mind was consciousness, then what is aware of no mind? When there's no thoughts, when there is sleep, when there is nirvikalpa samadhi, what is aware of that? Therefore, consciousness cannot be the mind. The other way to show this is, suppose you say your mind equals consciousness, okay? Or consciousness equals mind. Okay, look at this. When I speak, what am I doing when I speak? I'm speaking out my mind, because mine is seen how? Through words, right? You can't see my mind, can you? But you can see my mind how? When I talk. So we can all see each other's mind. We just have to open up our mouth. This is why you get a person talking and you really see what they're made of, because now they're starting to expose their mind. It's very easy to appear wise while saying nothing. So this means as I'm speaking, what is my mind to you from your standpoint? I'm speaking, my mind is revealed. It's an object of consciousness to you. Therefore, my mind is not consciousness. My mind is an object of consciousness. When you speak to me, then you are revealing your mind. What is your mind from my standpoint? It's an object of consciousness to me. Therefore, consciousness and object of consciousness, they are two different things. Mind is not consciousness. Mind is object of consciousness. Okay, so this is how we show in these three ways that mind is not equal to consciousness. And chidakasha rupaha. So consciousness is like space. It's all pervasive. See, wherever you go, what's going to change? Suppose you go light years to some place in a different galaxy. What's going to change? The forms, right? The air, the environment, everything's going to change. But what's going to be exactly the same over there as it is over here? I am. I am over there in Brahmaloka, wherever I wants to go, I am. Heaven, I am. Like space, wherever you go, I am. So this I am is consciousness. And then dritha nishchaya. This means the wise person has firm knowledge of this reality. That means it's present, it's true, it's available all the time. It is so firm that you don't judge yourself based on your upadhi. Now that you've heard that your body and my body are and my mind are upadhi, what's next? You say, oh, this is great, but my upadhi is no good. It's just a projection. Understand? What's the difference? What's the difference if you're the entire projection or a small projection? Let yourself be a donkey upadhi. A donkey upadhi will never be a horse upadhi. The donkey upadhi can decorate and put a mane on and look like a horse, but inside is going to know it is ultimately given a donkey upadhi. Therefore, the body that we're given, we can own up and say, thank you. It has done its job. It has come to the final truth. It has come to the knowledge that is good enough. Based on that, it has really been used to the maximum capacity that it can possibly be used, despite it being a donkey. If it's a horse upadhi, same thing. If it's a horse upadhi, it's someone that's well respected and everyone wants the horse, no one wants the donkey. Donkeys carry things, horses are valued a lot of money. So what? It's the kind of body that they're being given, but it's still an upadhi. Therefore, the knowledge is so firm, you don't have this need to compare yourself, contrast yourself. Oh, they know so much. They're so educated. I wish I was in their spot. So what? It's just an upadhi. Let the world be. It is not your creation. It's Ishwara's creation. Therefore, one can release this need to put themselves inside a box and compare themselves and say, I'm not good enough. I wish I was more. Hey, you have done so much. Start appreciating those things that you are doing for yourself. Could be doing anything else right now. So many things, but you're not. Therefore, we have a gratitude in our, we take on, gratitude for coming this far. The upadhi has come this far. And what kind of knowledge is this? It is aparoksha jnana. So there are three kinds of knowledges. There is one, pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means when you directly perceive this cup. Right now, this is pratyaksha. Paroksha is when I tell you about a durian, which you've never tasted, and you say, oh, okay, so it smells and it's very sharp and you can kill a person with a durian by throwing at it, right? And so you kind of get an image of what the durian is, and that's paroksha. That's indirect knowledge. You kind of have it, you have it in your head, but it's not really tasted. Aparoksha jnana is, it's right, Atma, I am never away from myself. Even your body is away from you. How do you show that your body is away from you? Suppose I say to you, your body is away from you. How do you show that your body is not the closest thing to you? There's something even closer to you.
Your awareness of the body.
And where's your good? And where's your body when you're sleeping, right? When you're dreaming. Yeah, your body's not there, but who's still there during dream? You are. Therefore, the mind is even closer than the body. But what's even closer than the mind? that which is there when the mind is not there, which is during deep sleep, and also during Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is very rare today. That's why we don't really use the Nirvikalpa Samadhi teaching very much. But back in those days, we used to go into these deep states of meditation, and we could, make certain inferences based on the fact that there was no person, there was no body, and there was no mind, but I was there. I was still there. Nowadays, we don't have Nirvikalpa Samadhi so much because, the tradition is sort of in a different place, but there was also a good teaching tool, or it used to be a good teaching tool. Okay, so the closest thing is that which is still there despite the mind going away and despite the body going away. So therefore, aparoksha is what is never away. Now, they say that moksha is aparoksha jnana, right? It's direct knowledge. See, this is a little bit not entirely true, because everyone has direct knowledge of I am. So aparoksha jnana is always true, and there's only one type of aparoksha jnana, of self. The only difference is you understand that the self, what it really is and what it's not. Okay, so it's not entirely true to say moksha equals I now have direct knowledge of self. You always had direct knowledge of self as I am. The only difference is you understand what this I am is. And the second, you may also ask, what's the difference between pratyaksha and aparoksha jnanam? Because pratyaksha is direct knowledge, aparoksha jnanam is direct knowledge. But what's the difference? When it comes to pratyaksha, it's direct knowledge of that which comes and goes. Aparoksha jnanam is direct knowledge of that which never comes and goes. Okay? All right. And now Jivanmukta, this person who connects with these teachings that we have expounded, they are called a Jivanmukta. And for a Jivanmukta, what happens? Their problems remain. Oh yeah. All of the problems, all of the anxieties, all of the stresses, the aging, the back pain, the intellectual diminishment, all of this remains. Why does it remain? Because your body is not yours, your intellect is not yours, your emotions are not yours. It is all Ishvara Srishti. When you remove a notion about something that is not yours, we have a specific name for this, which I will mention at the end on the last verse. But without mentioning the Sanskrit name, if you're looking at the sunset or the sunrise, okay, it looks like a sunrise and a sunset. Now, one day I say to you, it's not sun rising and setting, it's the world is rotating. Or you look at the world, which is flat, and I say to you, no, it's not flat. It's like every planet is round. There's no exception to Earth. And you still look into the horizon and you see the exact same flatness. So in other words, what has changed? The notion has knocked off, but the experience is exactly the same. The notion that the sunrise and sunset is true, that has been knocked off. It doesn't sunset and sun, it doesn't rise and set. The world turns. That's knocked off. But still tomorrow, the experience of sunrise and sunset is exactly the same. Why? Because the globe is Ishvara Srishti, the sun is Ishvara Srishti, rotation is Ishvara Srishti, none of it is yours. Now, is the body yours? Are the emotion yours? Is the thinking yours? None of it is yours. Therefore, when it comes to Jivanmukta, what's the only difference? The notion that this is me is knocked off. But the experience of the emotion, the distress, the ups and downs is exactly the same, just like looking at the sunset and the sunrise. Only the notion that this is mine, that is knocked off. And this is important because we have this notion that, a liberated person is living free of all problems and they're living in a very wonderful state of freedom. And all of this is not attributed to being wise, to understanding who you are. It's attributed to what? Being an adhikari. Understand? Being adhikari is what gives you a peaceful mind, what gives you a relatively stable, mature, balanced, educated life. The only difference is that takes you to the point of growing clarity, akanda akara vritti. You understand, it's very clear to me by the help of the pramana, I am not all of these things. They're just incidental. Were consciousness not to have Maya, this would not be happening right now. We would not be having this class right now. We would all be enjoying ourselves as the limitless one. But guess what? Consciousness does have Maya, and this is how it is. It's not going to be any different. This is how it is. It just happens to have Maya. Wonderful. Why? I don't really know, but this is how it is. And therefore, that much you can accept. You can say, okay, so it's just incidental. I happen to be here for now. That's okay. There's also a way out of this upadhi. That's also okay. I choose to come out of this upadhi. I've seen enough. Okay, now give me the teaching. You go through the teaching. You live out your life a little bit longer and never again find yourself with another upadhi. Simple as that, really. There's a way out. So we have covered the implied and the direct meaning of Tattvamasi. Then the next question arose, having understood the implied meaning, what is the qualities, or how do we identify the wise person? Who is that man of realization? And having known that, we talked about what do they understand about themselves. So man of realization. So it starts with evam cha Vedanta vakyaihi Sadguru upadeshena cha sarveshwapi bhuteshu. So far what it says is through Vedanta Vakyam, through Tattvamasi, you learn the true meaning of that through Sadguru Upadeshena, through the Sadguru. Knowing the truth, what happens? Sarveshwapi Bhuteshu. That truth abides in all beings, Bhuta, all beings. Brahma Buddhihi Utpana Te Jivanmuktaha. Who is a Jivanmuktaha? That one in whose Buddhi the truth of Brahman is born. And then the next verse, it said, Nanu Jivanmuktaha kaha. Who is a Jivanmukta? Yatha dehaha aham purushaha aham. So just as deha, I am a body, I am a man, Brahmana aham, I am a Brahmana, educator, teacher, worker, laborer, Shudraha aham, Dritha Nishchaya, they have firm knowledge of all of that. I am a Brahmana, I am a man, I am a woman. Just like that, when it comes to a wise person, Tatha Naham, in that same way, I am not Na'aham, I am not Brahmanaha, I am not Shudra, I am not a laborer or a worker, not Purushaha, I am not a person, I am Asangaha, I am uninvolved, just as space is uninvolved, just as H2O is uninvolved in whatever happens to the ocean, whatever happens to the waves. Satchid Ananda Swarupa. My truth is existence, awareness, which is limitless. Prakasha Rupaha. I am like light. That means I simply light up everyone's thoughts, everyone's emotions. I am Sarvantaryami. I abide in all minds. I am Chidakasha Rupaha. I am like space, that means accommodates all things without ever getting tainted by that which is being accommodated. Dridha Nishchaya, there's firm knowledge of all of these words that we have talked about. You understand them clearly without doubt. And if there is a doubt, you can ask. Dridha Nishchaya Rupa. Aparoksha jnana, what kind of knowledge is this? The knowledge that gives no space for vagueness. It is certain. You are absolutely, it's not even being convinced, because convinced means you have to sort of make yourself. It's just normal. It's a normal reality. And that one for whom it's normal, that's just how it is it's called a Jivanmukta.
Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.